It's website we say, oh, HTML there. Oh, this is dot HTML. But ocean. See, I'm making an API request here. This one network side. Well, see, even though it's just raw HTML, I'm making a request for mostly for Ahasi. It is coming from their developer software. So because that is where all their rooms are. So I'm fetching the rooms they have available. Right. So when you fill this form and you submit it, right, it will go as an API request as well. What's that thing? So see, we have get request, get request, get request, get request. There is get post, puts, and deletes. Get this. Right. Create. If you want to create something on the database, you use the post request. Then if you want to read, so this one is create, read, updates, create, read, update, delete. So if you want to read, you use get request. So for this one, the thing is already in the database that you want to fetch and for display purposes, right? So which is what I've done here. So I'm fetching the rooms from the database. Then we have updates. Updates, you use put request for updates. So with that one, the item is already in the database and you want to update it. Like you want to update maybe all of it or maybe just a part of it. You understand? And then delete. Delete is the simplest of them all. I would say delete and get. Delete and get request. The update is the simplest of them all. So you should be able to perform all these operations, given that the API you have, right, can do these things. You understand? And I was saying you can do it within raw JavaScript, right? Raw JS. So you can use just raw JavaScript to make API requests. You can use front-end frameworks as well. So React, Next, all of them, right? But doing it here is sometimes a bit difficult because you have to, I don't know, have you done DOM manipulation before? So when you get the result of the API request, you have to manually manipulate the DOM and put your results in there, depending on how you want to do it, which can be somewhere. So for today, we will see how we can use the React. Right? Let's let's use React and then maybe we'll see how to do it in Next.js as well, because that is the two frameworks we use most. It's even better that I'm recording so that every time I reference it. So I'm going to create a folder here for React. For see. install the React query. The version, right? Um, Still version 3. Um, So we need to install this one and this one. Dev tools.
How is it DMPM?
It's a package manager. It's like NPM, but this one is mostly used in China.
Okay.
They block the normal internet, so you don't have access to the normal things we have access to. See, Google, yeah, they are doing Google. When you open it,
It's brand and I react.
uh, 5.7. So let's set this one out. Let's go. Can you start? Can you start setting?
Okay.
Again, we'll go into this file.
The main is
This file. So we need to import this one, right? And this one. So very clients provider yeah, right. Then we need to import query clients. No. See, when you look at it, they did it in the app file.
yeah.
But if you do it this way, right? Right. If you do it here, you can't use this hook here. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Like you can't use the useQuery hook where you do the setup. So you have to say I do const query clients. Go to new query clients. New query clients. After that, what you have to do is to wrap this one in very client provider. Then you put this one here. Save. Then you do client equals query client. So now to make a call, to make an API call, use query. You need to use this one. And I'm saying where you do your provide the query client provider, no, maybe I will use a component to you. You can't use this one there in that same part of your app. So when you do it here, right, then it's so after you've done that here, then you come here. And then you can say import use query right from there. Then you come and do const query spot to use query. Right. So if you do this, you need to put okay, this is how it looks like. So it is an object, right? So you put an object here. You have query key, which is equal to an array of the name of what this query does, right? So this array will take a string of what this query does. So let's say fetch real estate listings. Listings. One. Then you have query function. What else? So this function get to use. They call it get to use. Where is that function? See, it is coming from this file. Boom. So you do, let me create a folder called APIs, right? Then I'll put that API file there. So I'll say api.js. Boom. Then over here, I will define a function get real estate listings. Then you can use function and distance listings. So over here, you return a function, you return a call to your API route, whatever it is. Right. So let's say we define these functions to get us to actually make the request to get us the real estate listings. Right. So this function you have to export it because you import it from here. Okay. So you can say export then import it to get real estate listings. See that we imported. So that is it, but the only problem we have, so if we go to the app and look at the network tab, because that is where your API calls will be made, right? You see nothing is occurring here. So you can either use this side to make the API calls or to check whatever API calls is going on, or you can set up the React Query DevTools. So to do that, you've installed it already, right? So we import this. Then do this. So you see the query key I put there about it. So if you click on it to give you more details about that query, like what happened to that query. You understand? See, we are getting data now, so like nothing really happened. And then over here, you can see that it is yellow, right? Still means that the query has already taken place. You understand? So you can click invalidate refetch. Let's see what. Let's go to so see in our this one there's nothing actually here. So nothing is really happening. So you can use fetch API, but I'll store as this. I Axios. So that we use Axios to do the API calls. So let's go to their website and see how to set it up. Then copy this. Right. Whenever copy this code, remove this then. Tell you what it does. So this timeout is 100,000 seconds, right? Is it seconds? Yes, it's seconds. 1,000 seconds. How many minutes is 1,000 seconds? But basically, what it does is that if the request, right, the request you are making, if for some reason the request takes long to complete, right? If this timeout reaches a good time, we should not. No, it's in milliseconds, yes. So if this timeout is up and the request hasn't completed, it will cut it. It will cut it off.
Okay.
You understand? So it will prematurely end the request. That is why I said you should use it. Otherwise, you won't know exactly what is causing your request not to work. Just want to remove it. So now I can use this instance, right? Because we set it up here. So I can return instance dot get, right? So this is where you make your get request. Then now this, you know, each JavaScript promises. Have you heard it before? Right. So this will return a promise. You understand? So it is an asynchronous function. Right. So you have to do async. Yeah, sure. So the reason why we are doing async await is because this one can take some time to execute, right? Because you are making a get request, you don't know when exactly it will complete. Right. So now this, okay, let me make an API request to test. So I am calling that function, right? This is not What Axios from this thing is not supposed to auto refresh.
I'm not again.
Huh?
I'm not good.
No, this one's not. It's library in Node.js. What is what you done? That's why they are using this require syntax. But I think I'm correct. Okay. .jsx or tsx.
What is the new file in JS?
It has to be a JavaScript file. It's weird. Why does it have to be JSX?
I think so that error will be there. When you see writer,
Everything else. But that's very weird. But this one is normal JavaScript. Mm. Right. So now, when it is blue, right? When this thing is blue, it means it is fetching. Oh, you know what I'm saying? So it can be in this state, so it is fetching, or it can be stale, or inactive, or it has been paused, or it is fresh. You understand? So if you look here, you can see more details on the request you are making. So the domain you are making it to some domain.com, right? Then so you basically can see your URL. So you see we did it instance get test, right?
Yeah.
So what this will do is to the way we, because the base URL is here, right? So you don't have to all the time make a maybe make a get request to the full URL. You understand? So you can just configure the base URL, then you add the portion of the URL that will change. When we start this one, I'll show you. So this is what happens. It will make the request, right? So you can see so far we've gotten 4 requests. What happens is that React query, when your request fails the first time, it will try 3 times. Right? So if each one of them fails, then it will stop. Right? And then if you've opened a tab, right? The page that has the app. If you go to another window and come back, you will see that it will happen. So you see 1, 2, 3 has failed. But you can see it is making some other additional requests, right? So it will make requests when it fails, like to try 3 times. And then when you go to another window or you go somewhere to go and browse again, right? And you come back to that page, it will try to refetch the data, right? That one, it is regardless of whether the request failed or not. So what it tries to do is that maybe while you were away from that page, something occurred, right? That has maybe someone is using the app somewhere that has caused the data to change in the database. So if you move away from the window and you come back, it will refetch the data like in the background so that you get the latest updates. Do you understand? So now to stop that behavior, right? You can pass extra keys here, right? So we can say retry. So we have these ones: refetch interval in background, refetch on mount, refetch on window focus is the one that controls whether or not to refetch the data when you move away from the window and you come back. You understand? Right. So I've turned it off. If you check it false, it will turn it off. Right. So use this one. Move away from the window, come back. See, nothing happens. So let me clear all the passwords. Move away, come back. Nothing will happen. Right. But if I turn it to true, by default it is true. So even if you move it away, like if you remove it like this, then it is true. Right. Move away, come back. See. That's it. Then let me turn it back down to false. Right. So it is off. And then I also want to turn off the retries. Right. So retry false. If false, failed queries will not try to refetch processes. So retry. I tell of retry. So this one, it will now when I go to another window, come back, nothing. Well, why is it? So on page load, right? When you load the page, it will run the request will run the first time, right? If it fails, it won't retry it again because I've turned the retry off. You understand? Then I go back and come back again. So this one to do it once. But under normal circumstance, you can the refresh on window focus. You can leave it true, and this one too. You can like the default behavior is okay, unless maybe it is interfering with what you are doing, then you can turn them. So we've turned this one off, we've turned this one on. So now let's use a real API. Aha, this is a good use case. If you look here, right, you see they are saying you can make 5 requests per second, right? So if you attempt to make more than 5 requests per second, they'll block you. They'll return that you are like they will basically return an error that you are making too many requests. And then you can also make 500 requests per month, right? So let's say you've configured that API and then this thing wasn't off. This refresh or window focus and retry wasn't off, right? If on page load, it will make 1 request, right? Then let's say for some reason you move away from that window, you come back in the background, not known to you, it will make another request. You understand? So if that happens, it means you will reach your limit before you know it. You understand? So to further control what we are doing, I will connect this API to a button, right? So what will happen is that we can do refetch, fetch, refetch on mount, refetch on point. So if you use the query, right, that one by default on page load, it will fetch. You understand? So and then anytime you make an update here, right, because this one auto refreshes, it will make that request again. You understand? So for example, let me remove all these things from the page. Come back here. Okay. I think it didn't do that. So then that is good. So okay, then that is good. We can start. So let me go to the API loop, which we want to use this one, the tutorial. You don't have any tutorials, but you have the endpoints, right? So now if you look at the endpoint, you will see that they are giving you location slash v2 slash autocomplete, right? Yeah. Then location slash autocomplete. But this one they've put duplicating here, which means they might remove it later on. So that is what duplicated is. Then we have plenty endpoints for properties, right? Blah blah blah. Now, if you look here, the code snippet, this is how you make a sample request, right? So you see this part, https colon blah 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 .com slash locations v2, which is this one, right? So it means that this part is the endpoint, right? And then all of this part is the base URL. So we need to copy the base URL and come and use it as a base URL here. See, it is almost the same. This one here. You understand? Then you come and put the endpoint. The endpoint here. You understand? So now if you go to the browser, refresh. Good. So you are saying it has made a request to the endpoint, right? If you look here, you see it. But they are giving us 401 unauthorized, which means we are not we can't use the API because we don't have access. So we need to generate an API token, right? So let me test the ask me to log in. So this is the now the API token, this is it, right? But how you use it, you have to every API uses it differently, right? So this one they are saying use these headers, right? So I'll copy these headers and paste it here. You see it. Then if I come back, see 403 forbidden. You are not subscribed to this API. So let me go and subscribe. So whenever you make a request, this status will show you um, um, how do I put it? The state of the request, whether it was successful or it failed. Yes, normally if you get um, they are in ranges. So we have 100 status codes, 200 status codes, 300, right? 400 up to 500. So let me use this to list all of this. So if you get any 400 status code, it is an error, right? If you get 200, essentially, if it is in this pink color, it is error. If it is green, it was successful. You understand? So now they are saying we are not subscribed. So let's see. Subscribe to this. So let me subscribe. Actually, let me refresh the page. The reason why I'm refreshing, right? The reason why 204 no content. The reason why I am refreshing to fetch is because in my app I have said that if the page loads, it should fetch. But you can maybe connect it to a button. I'll show you how to do that. So we are getting 204, which is green, but they are saying there's no content. Right. So, but where are they giving us? Now there's this thing here, params. Okay. So to add, you can add parameters to your request. You see this one, we are making a flat request. Say, make a get request to this endpoint, but you can pass data here. Config. Go to there. A get request. Hey. Yes, let's see. Good. So there's so you pass an object as the second parameter, right? Then you need this parameters. It's also an object. Okay. So in that object, you can do right. So basically, you can put this object there.
Yeah.
Right, so, so these ones they are like let me show you how to happen. Hey, see the request you are getting. If you come here, page, something wrong. Hello, so
So my glasses. What's on my glasses? That's all. Oh, really, mommy, I'm there, and I'm.
I said the 30 minutes per session, 45 minutes. What's that check?
Look at you as a work was a star. I went to work every two.
So this one, you see, we made a request to the base URL, right? The endpoint, right? And then the params we added, the params we added, this is how it is appearing. See, it comes as question mark, input is equal to New York, right? This is it. Input is New York, right? Limit 10. Then it comes and limit 10, right? So anything that I add here as well, it will come out and that thing with the value. You understand? So they have see, they showed me how to use their API, right? Anything extra will give errors. If you don't do as they want you to use the API, to give you errors. So basically, they showed an example of how to use their API with Axios in Node.js. Right. So you can maybe go and use jQuery fetch, right? HTML. So for now, we are using Axios. I'm using Java, PHP. So this is how you do it in PHP. So they have various languages and how you can Python. This is how you do it in Python. This is how you do it in JavaScript. They are using Axios as well, but a slightly different configuration. You understand? So the Axios, you can use it in various ways. So, but for our use case, mostly this is how I do stuff. Right. So you just configure the base URL, then use this variable several times. So we made the request, right? And then we are getting 200 OK. So if you look at the response, 200 OK means the request was successful, right? So if you look at the response, this is what you are getting back. So basically, this is an object. So with a key of meta, right, which is also an object. So if you look here, see, we have version and then ES to whatever that means. Then we have autocomplete, right? So we are getting this autocomplete is an array, right? So an array of objects. So if you look at this object, we have area type state, ID, state colon NY, score, blah blah blah, state New York, state code NY, country USA. So you are getting like a lot of data. They're giving a lot of data. So you have to look at which one you want to use within your app, right? And how you want to use it. So basically, this API request we've made, right? Best case is maybe you have a search bar. The person will type whatever you type, right? So you will take what the person like the place. I think this one is a real estate app. Yeah. So the city the person wants to search for the listings, you take whatever he types, right? And then use it as the input. Yeah. You understand what I mean? So let's try it. So there will be an input, the person will type and click search. When the person clicks search, then you make your API request. You understand? So let's try it out. So if we come to the dashboard, yes. Your food is here. So you see, so far I made for this API, I've subscribed to so many APIs. For this API, right? I've made 6 API calls. Right.
Yeah.
And they are saying I don't have any. I've made 6 API calls.
Mm.
But if you go to that API, have you saw the data? They said you can make like 500 in a month.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I think you can make 6 per second,
5.
5 per second.
Yeah.
I wanted to see the data about that. So let's do that. Let me create an input for here. What I'll do is to add, I won't add the style. Input type is text, right? Yeah, it doesn't have any value. Then add a placeholder. I say type the city, type name of city, right? So okay, let's make it so that the user can type the name of the city, but you can you can also make it so that you prefetch the cities, right? So you will determine which cities the user can search from, right? Then you can make it a select box. So if you select that city, then the system will show listings from that city. Do you understand? Or you can make it so that you can make it free. The user can type whatever city he wants. But that one, you also have to know that if or your API request, you get a failed response on the API, you've made a request, so it will count as part of the total number of requests you've made, even though the user didn't get any response back. Do you understand? But all of these things, it is because we don't control the API. The API is from somewhere, right? So, for example, if you use mNotify, the SMS API we use, right? It determines the number of requests you can make in a second. Even in Laravel, there is a portion of the code you can control that, so that you are controlling people not abusing your server, right? So normally you have 60 requests per minute. 60. So in a minute, anyone that is using your software or your API can make 60 requests, right? But if your app is a high traffic app, maybe you can make it 120 requests per minute. But 60 requests per minute is the general guideline. You can't make it infinite, right? If you make it infinite and your traffic increases, your site will crash. You understand? Because your server can't handle that load, right? But if you make a 60 requests per minute and a lot of people are on your site, right? And they are making a lot of requests, what you will get is the site is busy, right? So they should try later. So that one they can keep trying. That is what happens at KNUST when they are filling the hostel, hostel app. Site not that is what is happening because they haven't configured their server to handle a lot of requests. You understand? So if I go here, right, type name of city. Let me add a button here that we can click. Let me just turn this thing off so that it doesn't count as part of it. So I can just turn off this to stop making queries. So now I need to add, if I need to add a button, okay, this is very actually. So button, I can add a button and say search. So now I can add an on-click function. Right. And then over here, I can add, so let me add a state variable. Const user search query. What the user wants to do? Set user, I don't know how to use React. Like, well, you know how to use it well, or you know the basics. So this one, I've added a state variable. So I want to use this variable to track whatever the user is typing. You understand? So I say, so initially this variable is one. You understand? So I can print the value of whatever the user has typed. User search query. So now let's see, initially it was New York. Oh, New York. If I come to my app, you see over here, New York is there because that was the initial value. Let's just say maybe San Francisco. Right.
Can you clear this?
Hmm?
Can you clear it?
You can't. Because to clear it, you need to add an unchanged variable in your. They'll actually give you a warning. See, warning, you provided a value prop to a form field without an unchanged handler. This will render a read-only field. If the field should be mutable, which means it should change, use default value, right? So instead of mutable means it changes, immutable means it doesn't change. Programmers, they like using a lot of big words that with simple things. So I can, instead of using value, they are saying I should use default value. So default value is San Francisco. So in this case, I think you'll be able to get it. So I say on change, on change. You know how to handle events in React? Like on change, on click on those things. Now React, so on change, I can do, right? I can pass a function here.
So we use the function, we need to function.
Oh, yeah, but I'm doing it anyway. So let me check the machine. Hey, that's a 45 minutes now, chill.
Yes, that's an anymore.
That can be long like that. I'll go for life is short. Let's try. So on change, I want to use set on copy this one, paste it here. Set user query. I want to set whatever the user is typing. So I'll pass it here, event dot target set memory now, target dot value. So right, so whatever the user types, right, will be set here, right, to come here in this variable. When we are passing back this variable as a value, you understand? So now this. So what I also want to do is to what is it? Wait, so okay, so I want to log whatever the user is typing. Right, so React has some issue here. So if I do console.log user search, so whatever is being typed, right, is being set here in this variable, and I am logging it here. Okay, so let's see how to play out. Say new. You see, this is what the issue is. Also, I'm typing new W, but when I log the variable, I'm getting NE. What's that saying? So, no, it's not what I'm saying. New. No, it logs. You see, I'm not logging what I'm typing. I'm logging what has been set to the state variable, and I'm saying it is one character behind. What you say?
Yeah, because K no about the tamba.
About so there is this. Have you know how to use effects? Use effects snippets. Then you add this variable as a dependency, right? Then you log it. Right? User search. So this is how you actually do it. So this one, what it is saying is whenever this variable changes, log it.
Okay.
That is why we put it here. If you remove this, do you know what to do?
No.
What does it do? You don't know.
You said like a first one.
No, it will run this function once when you load a page, right? It will just run. Let me show you. Well, come here. This effect is not important. It's not important. Auto important. You see that log San Francisco because when it's the page loads, right? San Francisco is what it sees, so it will run it. You understand? But if I type in it, see, it doesn't run it. You understand? So I can, if you add it here, it's called a dependency array. So whenever this variable changes, it will log it. Right? So let's have So in actual fact, right, this variable holds whatever you've typed, right? This one, it holds whatever you type. But if you log it straight for it, like how do I put it? You do something with a state variable, maybe you set a state variable, and immediately after that state variable, you log it. Do you understand? Like you are using it right now, you want to use it right now. So you've done something to the variable, and immediately after that line, you want to use it. You won't get the complete version. You will get it like a step behind. What I say? So it's like that variable is a little bit late. So normally it is use effect that you run whatever you want to run when the variable changes. So that is the use effect variable. So of course, when I click this button, right? So see, I want to run a function when I click this button. So on click, right? Search user results. So const search user results. Events, right? So I don't really get it. So whenever the user types something, right, it will go into this variable. And then whenever I click this button, I want to run this function. This function will take whatever is in this variable and use it as a request. You understand? Right? So now with this useQuery hook and function, you see when you run the page for the first time, when you like refresh the page or when it's called page mounting, like when the page renders, it will run this function, right? And then you see we want to take whatever the user has typed, right, and use it as a param here. You understand? So now the user will give us a search query. User search query. Then we'll put it here. Instead of the user. So whatever the user will do, that's where we'll put it. Right. So we need to find a way of passing that variable to the function. So we can call this. See user search query. So we are calling this function. Will it work? And we are passing what the user is. This function is this function. Yeah. Right. So we are calling it in part. Let's see if it is working. See, okay, I guess it is working. What too many? Too many requests. A second. You need 10. So that's the problem. So you see on page load, I have 4 requests. Oh yes, there's an issue with the use effects in React. Because you see, I've turned this one on and this one off and this one off. I saw that issue. They are saying React when it is mounting, it mounts 4 times. Right, so to try to run 4, that is why we are getting 4 of these. Because that variable, this variable, right, it looks to be changing 4 times. So that's the issue. Yeah. And to any change, yes. So good. So whenever this variable changes, right, this thing will run as well. Right. So this fetch query node, It is bad for how do I put it? It is bad for requests where the user has to initiate it, because with this one, the user has to click the search button, right? In order for the request to run. Like ideally, that is what we want to happen.
Yeah.
But this query is running when the page loads, which is not what we want, and we can't control it that way, right?
Yeah.
So there is another hook you can use. So this hook is for when you want to fetch data and display it on that. Maybe you have a dashboard. What I say. Is this thing actually working? That's actually one.
Yeah,
No, the Zoom. It's not the Zoom. Don't crash it. So, what was I even saying? So this is not ideal. And I'm interested. If I say you over has this dashboard we say, we say we know it's just for display purposes,
yeah,
right? So you are not like you just want to see things for yourself. So with a dashboard like this, you can just use the useQuery hook to make a GET request to the endpoint, and you get the data back and display it here. Do you understand? There is nothing dynamic about this. You don't need to type anything and click search to do any sort of So for display purposes like this, you can just use the useQuery. But
use
in
it.
no
Okay,
useQuery.
use query.
But in cases where maybe the user has to type something before you make the request and stuff like that, there is another hook called use mutation. Use mutation, right? So I didn't even show you how. Let's see. But they're almost the same. So const mutation, it's got to use mutation, right? Oh, we should focus on this one. Let's focus on this one, finish this one before. So what I'll do is that I will comment this one out, right? The user, so that this thing can run only once. So let's just imagine that the user type San Francisco. We are using that to get our results. So if you come back for since it's doing them first 4 times, which is more what we want to know. This one is San Francisco. How bad? Why won't they block us? For some reason, it is running 4 times. I don't know why. So again, I am running once. Let me remove this one. Right. Now, so one pass it here. I'll hard code it here. Right, which is the same. San Francisco. Right. Yes. Yeah. So now, this is the data we are getting back. Right? So I made San Francisco, and then these are the uh, San Francisco, San Francisco, and then it is. So this one, this data we are getting back, it is autocomplete. So as the user types, right, you will get these responses. Then you show it to the user to click
On one.
on one. Then you will use that option to make another request. Right. So if you come here, okay. This thing shouldn't reload when you come here. Get autocomplete. You see, this is what the API does. Get autocomplete suggestions by city, word, street name to pass in other endpoint. This endpoint also helps you get a specific property ID. So you get these suggestions, then you can pass it to another endpoint. So you come to properties, right? Now you see this one is a post request. So property. So if you make a request here, I'm sure to let me see what it does. Is it list properties for sale, rent, sold with options and filters. Just it. So you can use this endpoint to list a property that you are selling. Then you can. So if the platform belonged to you, right, you will have an endpoint that your users can use to post to your database. Then when another user comes, he will go and read from the database. You understand? Then you have anything, any GET request you see is for like reading data. So you can say list similar homes. And these are the params you need. You need a property ID, the limit, and then for sale. Right. So the status. So you see this one, they're asking for a property ID. So if you this is the property detail. See, they are always requesting for property ID. And then if you come to these suggestions, so basically you make a request to another endpoint, and in that endpoint you get a property ID data that you can use to make another request. You understand? So you have to go through this and set about whatever one it is that will be the property ID. So you can get a listing of the agents, mortgage and finance schools. Yes, yes, let me just show you. Maybe after we are done, you can look for the property ID thing. Look for the endpoint that will give you the property ID. So if you and then you can test the endpoint then. When I'm done, I'll show you another app. You know Postman.
Yeah.
You can also use Postman to test APIs, right, and see how the responses you get back.
Okay.
So if you make a request, right? So I'm using this useQuery to make a request. The query is what holds the query is what holds the data. What I say? So this variable. So when I do, let me show you something. Query dot. You see what we are getting?
What's the definition of I got you using
What did you say? I'm playing and this was a cookie.
Oh, I'm chasing in my mouth. I see this.
What is it? This is another one.
Oh, my. My choice is this. Oh, mommy, 20 cities. It's over between cities, you know, and I mean, my 5 cities. It's over, me say.
I come out just.
Hey, to me, charity.
It's no. Woman, it's not a good place.
Just them get back.
I have a very wise
Yeah, I
idea.
don't like that. Let's go over and once.
Okay. I choose nothing kind of in there.
I said, one is two now good five. Instead of talking about manifesting, tell them to we come and two. We can cut the balance.
I find.
So I think, see how two are being.
I don't want to see.
But they'll cut to see.
I don't want to see. I don't want to see. Say I find sleeping. You want to see. I don't want to see this. Physically, I have a one if I see this. What?
Yeah, the right.
They say, I was casting out. Woman,
I don't know. I don't want.
woman is
Man to see.
it's your woman was.
Oh,
It's woman is woman is.
teaching them the money. I don't want to see this. If I see my question, I don't to see so far.
You see, I want to see about something. That's our ones to something. This end on the person that we do.
So, no, saying interesting story. Interesting thing. Yes, I know this is me.
What's this for them?
I don't want to see this.
Did that?
I don't want to see this. Everyone's going to be to see this. No one person is going to see this for their camera.
That's very business.
I tell you, experience.
I don't know how you want to.
Talk about it for you.
So the open source can be a premium day.
Maybe if it is one person, it's only Intel or something.
Okay.
Loading. So right. So in this query variable, we can get the state of the query and the data. So we can say query dot is loading. So if it's loading, it means the query is running. You understand? So if it usually I use this to display loaders and stuff. So if it's loading, then maybe you can say loading this with you can make like this. When the query is running, you get you see, when it is downloading, this will become false. If it is loading, it is true. If it is downloading, it will be false. Right. So, and then we also have query dot is success. So if it is success, then it means data fetched. But normally this one I don't use it to write anything on the screen. Right. So if it is successful, it means the data is available in the database. No, not in the database, in the variable. So you can do right. So if it's a success, then you can say query dot data, right? So this is where the data is held. So you do query dot data, Right, so if you do data, it means that you are now here, right? Query data, then you can do, so you can say query data dot meta, right? Or dot auto, because this is an object. So let's say I want to do dot meta, and then this is an object, so I can say dot meta dot version. So dot meta, right? Dot version. And then, so I'm saying if it is successful, then show this, or if it's not successful, then it means failed, right, to fetch data. What's up? Right, so if you do data, then means you are in the response. You understand? Then you can now start using dots to traverse it. So now I can also render this one. Yes. So I can say, can do the same thing here. For ES. Right, so if it is an object, right, you can just do this and you keep doing dot to fetch the data you want. But if it is an array, right, this autocomplete is an array. Array, mostly you map over it. You understand? So, or you can get maybe the first element, right? So I want to map over it as well as, let me map over it first. So I will do this. Make a div. Then I will do right. If it is successful, I want to render a div here. Successful. I want to do dot autocomplete, right? Autocomplete. Now this is an array, so you have to do dot map, right? Item, then your arrow, and I want to put every item in a paragraph, right? Then you do item dot. Now you, because each one is an object, you can right? So you can do item dot area type, right? Which will get city. So let's see. Dot area. What is like this? Area underscore type. Those are school, city, school, right? So then you can also do country. So now this one, you see, it is a paragraph. So let me make it a div. Then I'll put the paragraphs inside. It doesn't look confusing.
No.
So, this one. Area type, then I'll do item dot city. So I'm not displaying it properly, but you see, we have city, we have the type, right? And then we have the city. right? So this an array, most of the time you use a map on an array, right? So you get a list of data. So it's either an object or an array. That's why then you see we have counties. The counties. So you can either map. When you map over it, you have to style it to look the way you want. Yes, so let me show you one more stuff. If you can do make a video, and then let me see query dot is success. Right, I want to query dot data dot autocomplete. And because this is an array, you can get the first item, right? If you get the first item, then you can do dot area type. It's the same thing. You would say no data found. Because it's a ternary operator. Right. So you put in the first item. So arrays, you may be the first, but sometimes if you are working with an API and you can't be too sure that the fields you want will come back, right? So you can't be sure that this actually exists on the object or this, right? So normally you can put a question mark here. Just so what this would do is that if it doesn't exist, your app won't crash. But if you are confident and you say without the comma, without the question mark, it means you are sure it exists. And if it doesn't exist, your app will crash. So that is the useQuery. I hope it's understandable. So let's just stop here. Let's see if this thing is actually working.